At 6:30 a.m. on a Sunday in November 2022, the doorbell rang, waking me up and setting in motion a chain of events that would change my life. At the time, I was finishing my senior year of college, majoring in business, and preparing to graduate that summer. I lived alone in a small apartment. My 19-year-old sister, Lena, showed up at the door, visibly anxious. She quickly apologized for waking me but couldn't wait to share something with me. Her words made me pause. She said she had had a vision. Lena often experienced visions, so I wasn't entirely surprised, but her urgency at such an early hour made it clear that something was serious. Since childhood, Lena's visions had always been a bit uncanny, almost always coming true, at least in part. Her visions came in two parts, though only one ever seemed to materialize. For example, once she saw our mom feeding ducks at the park while a thief stole her handbag. At the time, we didn't believe much in her visions. But a few days later, Mom was in that same park, thinking about feeding the ducks but deciding against it due to a lack of time. Shortly afterward, a thief swiped her bag. If she had stayed longer, perhaps the vision would have unfolded as Lena had seen. That incident made us more aware of her visions, and we started avoiding the worst outcomes she predicted. There were rare times, however, when we avoided both parts of her vision, like when she foresaw a dog being run over. We later found a lost dog, took it home temporarily, and eventually found it a new home before it was put down. Months later, we learned that the dog was still alive and well. This time, Lena's latest vision troubled her deeply. Sitting in my living room, I asked her to share what she had seen. She spoke quietly. Dennis L. Wagner, born February 14, 2000, passed away on November 3, 2023. We had recently visited his gravestone to pay our respects. I was taken aback. "What else did you see?" I asked. "There was a Christmas tree, and you, Mom, me, and another woman were sitting around it." "Another woman?" I asked, confused. "Did I dress up as a woman for Christmas?" Lena replied, "No, not just dressing up, much more feminine than you could ever imagine right now. The way you moved, looked, and behaved was entirely different." We drove to Mom's house an hour away to talk this through. After all, I had never dressed as a woman before, and this seemed incredibly serious. We needed feedback from Mom. Mom was shocked by Lena's vision. A year before, she had lost her father, and now, the thought of losing her son was almost unbearable. Even though I was still figuring out how to transition, there was a chance to become a woman. But it wouldn't be easy or immediate. Christmas was only a few weeks away, and I would need time to prepare. Since the first part of Lena's vision was due to happen in a year, there was no immediate danger, but the second part could happen soon. On November 3, 2023, we all agreed that transitioning into a woman was the best course of action. We briefly considered trying to avoid it, like we had with the dog, but the risks were too great. It was better to live as a woman than to risk death. We decided to start right away. I had already done a lot of research online about transitioning. Lena suggested that I begin by dressing as a woman so I could get used to it. I reluctantly agreed, realizing she was right. Lena immediately sprang into action. She grabbed a tape measure, told me to undress, and began taking my measurements. "You're not much taller than me," she said, "and your waist and chest are just a little wider, but your hips are narrower. Some of my clothes should fit you." She then instructed me to shower and shave my beard and legs. "Shave my legs?" I questioned, but she insisted, "Pantyhose won't look good on hairy legs." I followed the instructions while also keeping busy with other tasks. Mom and Lena picked out clothes for me from the ones my sister had left at Mom's house while she was at school in the city. After using the restroom, I stood in front of a pile of women's clothes. With a little help, I put on a black skirt, a red sweater, tan pantyhose, and a bra stuffed with socks. My feet were too big for either Mom's or Lena's shoes, so I had no shoes to wear. I also didn't have any makeup, and my hair was too short to complete the look. Once I was shown where the vanity was, everything changed. Mom and Lena guided me through applying makeup, but they insisted I do it on my own, as they wouldn't always be around to help. After several corrections, they finally approved the result. But when I saw myself in the full-length mirror, I felt a sense of disappointment. I didn't see a woman, I saw a man in women's clothes and makeup. I knew there was still a lot more to do, but with nearly a year to go, I had time to improve. The short hair didn't help either. Mom noticed my expression and reassured me, "Don't worry, this is just the first try. With a wig, it will look a lot better. And you don't even have jewelry yet." Lena added, "You'll need to get your ears pierced for nice earrings." I asked Mom, "What name would you have given me if I were born a girl?" "We never chose a female name because we knew you were a boy," Mom explained. "But we'll figure that out as you go along." After some thought, Lena suggested, "I like Denise. It's close to your male name." "Okay, sounds good. I'll be Denise," I agreed, though I felt strangely uneasy in the clothes. I thought to myself, well, I guess I can take it all off now. But Lena quickly responded, "Oh no, Denise, you're just getting started." It led to a lot of practice, sitting, standing, and walking like a woman. I was relieved I wasn't wearing heels yet, as Lena had promised I would soon. "You still have a lot to learn," Lena said. "It's best to wear women's clothes as much as you can so it feels natural." When it was finally time to return to the city, I took off the makeup and clothes and got back into my usual attire. Lena had brought quite a few of her clothes and makeup, including nightgowns, for me to wear when I got home. Living alone was a relief. The next morning, I probably looked ridiculous in my pajamas, but before long, I was back in my male clothes and off to college. In my free time, I started searching for online resources, but I quickly became overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information and struggled to find anything useful. Still, I learned a lot about being transgender. I wasn't eager to dress up again, but I knew I had to. I picked out what seemed like a suitable outfit, put it on, and spent much longer than I wanted on my makeup. Afterward, I tried to act more feminine, though I didn't quite feel like a woman. The next day, Lena took me shopping. We first visited a wig store, where an elderly woman helped us. When I nervously admitted I was looking for a wig for myself, she reassured me by saying that many crossdressers shopped there. The embarrassment was worth it because the store had a wide variety of high-quality wigs. I found one that was shoulder-length and the same blonde shade as my natural hair. Then, we went to a shoe store. We weren't the only customers there, and I had to adjust to the idea of being seen as a man dressed as a woman. When a young salesperson asked if I needed help, I hesitantly said, "Yes, I need women's shoes." She measured my feet and told me I was a size 10. "Women's shoes for you, sir," she said. I replied nervously, "Yes, I suppose." When she asked what style I preferred, Lena suggested I get both black dressy pumps and casual flats. The salesperson showed us several pairs of shoes, and I tried on a pair of women's shoes. "Excuse me, may I ask why you need women's shoes?" I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Well, I'm a crossdresser, and I'm trying to transition into a woman." That was close enough to the truth. She smiled warmly. "Oh, that must be difficult, but you're cute. You'll make a pretty woman." "Thanks, you're very kind," I responded. I had expected much worse reactions, but her positivity was a relief. She introduced herself as Megan. "You're always welcome here." "Thank you," I said. "I'm Dennis, well, soon to be Denise. And this is my sister, Lena." I explained to Megan that I was just beginning my journey, doing research, and that I had a lot of practice ahead of me before I could pass as a woman in public. Megan offered to help, and I agreed because I liked her instantly. We exchanged phone numbers and made plans to meet up on Sunday. I ended up choosing 3 pairs of shoes, flats, low-heeled pumps, and stiletto heels that were 4 inches tall. Although I was unsteady in the high heels and almost fell when I tried standing, Lena assured me I would get used to them. She helped me, but she had her own life to manage, so I had to practice on my own too. The next few days were filled with more online research, and I continued dressing up at home, now with a wig that made me feel much more feminine. I no longer felt as ridiculous as I had before. Sunday arrived, and I was extremely anxious. It would be the first time anyone besides my family saw me dressed as a woman. When Megan arrived, we didn't begin right away. We didn't know much about each other, but we quickly discovered we shared many common interests. I grew more fond of her the more we talked, and eventually, I decided it would be nice to show her each step of my transformation. Putting on the clothes wasn't the most special part, but Megan had some makeup tips that my mom and sister hadn't shared. She didn't have the privilege of wealthy parents and couldn't attend college full-time, but she took evening courses. I stood in front of her, wearing a blue dress, dark hose, black pumps, a wide belt, a silk scarf, and a few bracelets, which really completed my look. Megan hugged me and said, "Denise, you're really pretty." I blushed, returning the hug. "Thank you, but no, you are pretty," I replied. She kissed me passionately, and although we were both a bit embarrassed, I didn't regret it at all. Afterward, I modeled more of the clothes Lena had picked out for me. Though some of the clothes didn't fit right, and they were all used, I felt surprisingly comfortable in them. With Megan smiling at me, I finally felt at ease in women's clothing for the first time. We kissed again as we said our goodbyes. Megan mentioned that since Wednesday was her day off, we should go shopping. When we went shopping, I tried on a few things in the changing room with Megan's help. I was less nervous than before because I already knew my sizes from the clothes I had at home. I needed more underwear, so Megan insisted on buying lacy bras, panties, garter belts, and stockings, winking at me as she did. Afterward, we had a quick meal before parting ways. The following Sunday, I surprised Megan by meeting her in a red top, a tight black miniskirt, black stockings, and 4-inch heels. I'd practiced walking comfortably in the stiletto heels, and Megan suggested we go outside for a walk. Though I wasn't fully prepared to go out, I eventually agreed. It was getting dark, and I was confident no one would recognize me. We walked around the neighborhood, and though I was nervous at first, I started to relax when several people passed by without noticing anything unusual. When no one was around, we held hands and shared a kiss. I felt overjoyed, having taken my first steps as a woman in public. It boosted my self-confidence immensely, especially since my girlfriend had accepted me and loved me. I also felt more at ease wearing women's clothing. Though I still had doubts about living as a woman and whether I would miss being a man, the evening ended too quickly, and Megan had to go home. Before she left, I gave her a heartfelt kiss and promised we would go out the following Saturday. Later, I contacted a support group I found online for crossdressers. They met on the second and fourth Thursdays of every month, so I decided to go to the next one, which was the following week. My voice was another issue. I didn't sound like a woman. Thankfully, I found a voice training tape online, bought it, and started practicing immediately. I prepared to go out as a woman on Saturday but started to doubt myself. I'd always been in the dark, but this time, the rooms would be lit, and people might recognize me as a man. I didn't want to risk negative reactions, and I wasn't sure where I could go since I wasn't ready to fully come out yet. I called Megan to cancel, but she had already left. When she arrived, she seemed to understand my fear and suggested we still go out, but I would go as a man. I was relieved to realize that getting ready as a man didn't take nearly as long, so we could start our night out without delay. When we got home, we had the whole night ahead of us since Megan had packed a bag to stay. As soon as I put on my wig, female underwear, and breast forms, I saw the glow in her eyes. It was well worth it. On Sunday morning, I didn't wake up alone for the first time in a long time. Naturally, I dressed as a woman again, this time in casual jeans and a sweater. We cuddled and spent the entire day together. Megan even got me outside for a walk before it got dark, which helped boost my confidence because everything went smoothly. The day went by too quickly, but at least we had plans to attend the support group meeting on Thursday. My voice training tape arrived on Tuesday, and I spent a lot of time practicing. Later that evening, the doorbell rang. As usual, I was dressed as a woman, and when my friends came to visit, they typically called ahead to see if I should open the door. I was anxious, but I reminded myself that this was bound to come out eventually. I was relieved to see Lena when I opened the door. I told her everything that had happened in the past 2 weeks. She complimented how I looked and was happy with how things were progressing. She offered her help again, but by then, I already had all the support I needed. Thursday finally arrived, and I needed to get ready for the support group. I decided to wear a casual dress and flat pumps, aiming for a feminine look without going overboard. Megan approved of my choice, but I still felt anxious. I would need to leave in broad daylight, meet new people as a woman, and converse in a deep voice. Still, I knew they would understand because they shared similar experiences. We drove to the meeting, and when we arrived, I had to enter the meeting room. Megan held my hand to calm me down. There were already many women and a few men there. Most of the men looked rather boyish, and many of the women were clearly crossdressers. The group's ages ranged from 20 to 50, with outfits ranging from casual to evening wear. A woman walked up to us and greeted us warmly. "Hello, you two must be new here." "Thank you," I replied in my not-so-feminine voice. "I think we called last week. I'm Denise, and this is my girlfriend, Megan. We've got quite a mixed crowd today," she said, smiling. "We'll start with a lecture on different methods of beard removal, followed by some general discussion. Then most of us go to a bar to enjoy a nice evening among friends." The lecture began shortly after, and there was a wealth of useful information. It seemed that the new laser treatment was still less effective than traditional electrolysis. I was also given contact details for a reputable electrolysis clinic. After the formal portion concluded, we all headed to a nearby bar with the other group members. Even though I was aware I might be recognized as a man, especially if I spoke, I felt comfortable and safe among the group. The locals had likely grown accustomed to me by now. The conversation was engaging and informative, with several people offering recommendations for a therapist, an endocrinologist who specialized in hormone therapy, and a few other places I should check out. Some even invited me to join them on Saturday. We agreed, and this time, I would truly come out as a woman. After all, I had already done so before and received numerous compliments on my appearance. The evening ended early because the next day was a work day. With Christmas just 2 weeks away, the next support group meeting would be held in 4 weeks. I scheduled appointments with the recommended therapist and electrolysis specialist. Due to a cancellation, I managed to get an appointment for electrolysis the following Wednesday, though the therapist wouldn't be available until January 5th. While the holiday season wasn't the ideal time to start, I was determined to move forward. My Saturday night out as a woman was enjoyable, though I did run into a neighbor on the stairs as I was leaving my apartment. He gave me a strange look but said nothing. I knew that reaction was inevitable eventually. On Sunday, Megan and I spent the day together again, going for a walk. While we were at the theater, she noticed that a movie she wanted to see was playing. "A movie theater is dark anyway," she suggested. I agreed, though I had overlooked the fact that there would be a lot of light before the movie started. Still, Megan assured me that I looked fine, and no one would guess I was a man. No one paid me any attention. My first electrolysis session took place on Wednesday, and I learned that I would need to go every week for at least the next 2 years. On Thursday, just 1 week before Christmas, my sister came to visit again. After some small talk, she suddenly became serious. "Have you met Megan's family yet? Do they know about you?" she asked. "No, I haven't met them yet, and they don't know about Denise," I replied. "Her parents know she has a boyfriend, though. Do you plan to visit them soon?" "Yes, we've talked about it." "Okay, but go as Dennis, not Denise. Don't tell them about Denise yet. Her parents are curious and want to meet you, and we thought Christmas would be a good time. Megan's parents are a bit strict, aren't they? She still lives with them, right?" "Yes, and I had a vision about you, Dennis, and Megan meeting some older people, whom I assumed were her parents. I believe they won't accept you as Denise." "Yeah, I agree. It's probably just not the right time yet," I said. But at some point, they'll have to know about me. We also talked about visiting our parents. My mom had invited Megan's parents over for Christmas Eve, and she suggested I meet them as Denise. I can't do that, I said. I don't think your parents would react well to me this way. Why do you think that? You're so comfortable as a woman now, and I don't want to hide you from them. They might not accept it, I replied. You don't know them like I do. I love you so much, Megan said, and they'll just have to like you too. Do you think my parents are rednecks who'll tell me who I can and can't love? She added, her voice growing irritated. I didn't know how to calm her down, except to tell her the truth. Well, I started, I certainly wouldn't be the ideal husband in their eyes. Tell me what you mean, she said, more calmly now. Okay, here it is, I said, taking a deep breath. My sister, who's psychic and occasionally has visions that almost always come true, told me I have to transition into a woman, or I will perish. I'm not really a crossdresser in the sense that I feel like a woman inside. But just like others, I have to become a woman, which is why I do all of this. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with my parents? It's hard to believe, I know, but why would I make this up? I love you, and I don't want to lose you, nor do I want you to have issues with your parents. My sister, Lena, had another vision this week. She saw that if I don't visit your parents as Dennis, they might throw you out. Could we keep Denise a secret for now, even if you don't believe me, just to be safe? She wasn't convinced yet, but after I explained more about Lena's visions, she seemed to believe me. At least she agreed to go with me as Dennis and keep my female side hidden when we visited her parents. Fortunately, Megan didn't have to work that day because Christmas Eve fell on a Wednesday. We left early in the morning to see my mom. I decided to dress as Denise because by then, I was comfortable in women's clothing, and I knew my mom would want to see how I was doing. When we arrived, Mom and I hugged, something we hadn't done much before. She liked what she saw and complimented my appearance. She was also happy to meet my girlfriend, and the two of them got along well. My sister arrived a little later, and we had a wonderful time together. Mom was thrilled to have 3 daughters. While we were sitting around the Christmas tree, Megan said, "You know, it was a few weeks ago that Lena said something. I think she might have been right." Lena added, "I told her about your visions. The 4th woman, I didn't know at the time, is you, but unlike the vision, Denise isn't as feminine. However, it doesn't matter because we still expect the vision to come true in 2023. The next day, I finally met Megan's parents, and I really hoped everything would work out, as it would mean I could stay with Megan, the person I was deeply in love with. Thankfully, Lena's vision helped, or we might not have been so comfortable sitting in their living room. For now, they seemed happy that their daughter had found a boyfriend, and we kept Denise a secret as we agreed. It was actually fun talking with them, but I hoped one day they could accept me as Denise too. After Christmas, Megan and I started going out to transgender-friendly bars on Saturday nights, reconnecting with our new friends from the support group. I felt more comfortable as a woman and began shopping in broad daylight, first with Megan, then on my own. It felt great, even though I didn't plan to date men and was sometimes misread as a man. Everyone seemed to accept me as a woman. I met a few more neighbors in the hallway, most of whom just looked and didn't say anything, like the one I met before. But one woman congratulated me on my courage. I had spent most of the past weeks at home in women's clothes, but now I was appearing in public more frequently as a woman. I had read a lot by this point and even spoken to a few people who had seen the same therapist, so I knew what to expect and what questions she might ask. Then came the appointment with the therapist on January 5th. I was nervous at first, but she quickly calmed me down, assuring me she was there to help, not judge, which was a huge relief. I dressed in a stylish business suit and high heels for the meeting. Since I had always been small-framed and had faced bullying in school, I decided to tell her the truth about myself, though I kept the reason I felt the need to become a woman to myself. She seemed impressed by my natural appearance and determination. She liked the support I had from the group, my family, and my girlfriend, as well as my transition plan. I told her that I finally understood why I hadn't felt like I fit in before, and that spending more and more time as a woman made me feel much better. We scheduled a follow-up consultation for February 9th, and she wished me luck as I left. The following day, I had my second electrolysis session, which would now be a regular appointment on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Thanks for watching. If you'd like early access to upcoming parts, check out my Patreon. Otherwise, it will be online in a couple of days. Thursday was another support group meeting, and I met most of my new transgender friends there. I attended as a woman, even though I didn't feel I needed as much support anymore. I kept attending the meetings to stay connected with my new friends and perhaps offer support to others as well. The Tuesday after, I saw an endocrinologist about hormones. Just 4 weeks earlier, I was still taking my first steps as a woman in public, but I had already made significant changes. Many people told me they noticed the difference, too. It was time to tell my friends, whom I hadn't seen in a while due to spending most of my free time as a woman with Megan. When I finally shared the true reason, they were all quite surprised. Most of them were supportive, but a few rejected me for my choice. Some thought Megan was the reason behind my decision. I knew some loss was inevitable, but I could handle it because I didn't want to live 2 lives. I also planned to begin transitioning at college as soon as possible. Since I didn't have enough space to host a gathering, I invited everyone to a bar and offered to pay for the first 2 rounds of drinks. With my birthday approaching, I decided to make that day my official transition date and combine it with a transition party. The real-life test would officially begin on February 14, 2023. Since I wasn't planning on having surgery, the timing wasn't as important. A few more things needed to be done, starting with legally changing my name. The process was simpler than I had expected. I filled out a form, provided a letter from my doctor confirming I was receiving treatment for gender dysphoria and needed to live as a woman, and was told I'd receive my new driver's license in 4 to 6 weeks. I spoke with the student counselor at college, who assured me it wouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't be the first student to transition. I would have to wait for my driver's license to change my records, but I could still attend classes as a woman in the meantime. On February 9th, I had my second session with my therapist. I updated her on how my life was going and discussed the upcoming transition at college. Since I didn't need another session immediately, we agreed to meet again in about 6 months. Finally, it was my birthday. To be on the safe side, I told my teachers about my upcoming transition. Normally, Megan would have worked on Saturdays, but she took the day off so we could celebrate together. Megan kissed me awake and brought me breakfast in bed. After I finished eating, she handed me my birthday present, instructing me to open it right away. It was a beautiful set of clothing, a stunning red teddy with black trim and garters, matching undies, and black seamed stockings. It was the perfect start to my new life as a woman. Megan insisted I wear it on my birthday. My hair had grown enough to be styled femininely, and I had a beautician appointment at 4 p.m. Even though I was skilled at applying my own makeup by this point, I knew a professional would do a much better job. For my party that night, I wore my new outfit, including the seamed stockings, a tight black dress that reached mid-thigh, and 4-inch black heels. When I looked in the mirror, I felt beautiful. Before I left, I was excited to make an impression on my friends, and it seemed to work. Many of my male friends looked at me with unabashed interest, while my female friends complimented my appearance. Most people had only met me casually before, when I was dressed in more relaxed clothing at home. In the days following my coming out, I noticed a shift in my relationships with my friends. Before, I was one of the guys, but now most of the men treated me differently, and I couldn't continue the same way. The change with my female friends was more positive. We became closer than ever, and most of them began to accept me as one of them. I was happy to see that my old friends had accepted me, and the few new friends I made from the support group also felt like part of my life. The event remains one of my favorite memories. 2 days later, I attended class for the first time as a woman. It wasn't a shock since most people who knew me had already heard about my transition. I wore the same jeans, sweater, and flat shoes as before, but with a more feminine touch. My new haircut and a bit of makeup made my face look different. Thankfully, that day was uneventful, and I simply became another young woman. March came, and while we were still unsure how to inform Megan's family about my existence, I still gave the impression of being a man when I visited them. Since we spent most of our time together and Megan often stayed at my apartment, she didn't live with them anymore. So, the vision of them throwing her out no longer seemed likely to happen. Then, Lena came to see us and shared another vision. Since we weren't ready for a baby yet, Megan decided to take the pill. However, my sister's vision suggested that wouldn't be enough. A few days later, a pregnancy test confirmed that we were expecting a baby, due on December 14th. I had already wanted to start a family, but now I had even more motivation. I asked Megan if she wanted to marry me, and the answer was yes. We decided to get married on June 20th, 2 weeks after my graduation, so I wouldn't have to worry about planning during my final exams, and Megan wouldn't hopefully start showing too soon. After 5 months of hormones, I would likely show as well, but that didn't matter, we were both preparing for our wedding. The only remaining issue was informing my future in-laws. We had to break a lot of news to them during the visit. First, I told them about the wedding, which made them happy, as they still saw me as the ideal son. Then, I shared the news about the baby, which also brought them joy. Finally, I revealed that I was living as a woman, which initially shocked them, but things quickly turned hostile. Before we could explain further, Megan's father threw me out. As Megan left with me, we had hoped things would improve and that her parents would come to accept me for who I am. But there was no hope left. We were both overwhelmed with sadness as we sat in the car afterward, crying for a while. Life moved on, and a few weeks later, we were able to speak with Megan's mother. After some explanation, she accepted my decision, but her husband refused to speak with me and wouldn't discuss me with his daughter. Weeks went by, and I received my graduation certificate in the name of Denise. I also had 2 weeks of free time to prepare for the wedding, followed by 1 week for the honeymoon. I had found a job at a bank that would start on July 1st. The wedding was beautiful, with 2 lovely brides. Even Megan's mother showed up, seeing me for the first time as a woman, and she seemed to fully accept me. She even complimented me. The only drawback was that Megan's father still couldn't accept me and skipped his daughter's wedding because of it. The highlight of the day was the wedding night. After a week-long honeymoon at Niagara Falls, we returned to reality. My new job at the bank had to start soon. After all, someone had to work to provide for our small, growing family. It was November 3rd, 2023, the day Lena had predicted I would die. However, I was certain it wouldn't happen. I had already transitioned into a woman, and if I did pass away, Denise would be on my gravestone, not Dennis. I had been working at the bank for 4 months and living full-time as a woman for over 8 months. Megan's pregnancy was progressing well, and her growing belly was impressive. Life was good. But just then, as I was discussing a client's investments, 2 masked, armed men burst into the bank. They quickly disarmed the security guard and told everyone to stay calm, assuring us that nothing would happen. I sincerely hoped that was the case, but I couldn't help but trigger the silent alarm. We were then ordered to sit in a line against the wall while one of the tellers gathered the money for them. We heard police sirens as the robbers attempted to flee, but this time, they actually moved fast. Unfortunately, the thieves escalated the situation and took us hostage. They demanded an escape vehicle and $2 million in cash. Naturally, that took time to arrange, and the police likely delayed them further. As time passed, the gangsters grew more anxious. One of them finally snapped, walking over to us while on the phone. I overheard him say, "I've had enough of this. I'll show you I'm not messing around." He then raised his gun and looked into my eyes, saying, "I bet you don't think I'll do it. Why don't you get the money here?" I was terrified he might shoot me. He turned to the person next to me and ordered him to stand up before directing him toward the entrance for the police to see. The robber shot him. At that moment, it was clear that I might have been his next target, but I had become a woman, and he probably didn't want to shoot a woman. While I was relieved to still be alive, someone else had to die in my place, and I had no control over the situation. Then, I suddenly heard more gunshots, but this time, not from the robbers. The gangsters were struck, likely because the police had finally decided to storm the bank. The second robber, furious after the first one shot the man, became enraged, and the police took advantage of the chaos to neutralize the remaining gangsters. The robbers were gone, but the victim of their shooting was still alive, though seriously injured. An ambulance was already waiting, and they rushed him to the hospital. We, the other hostages, were fortunate to escape unharmed, at least physically. The emotional shock, however, was profound. Though I was relieved that no one had to die in my place, I couldn't help but believe that if I had still been a man, I would have been shot and probably wouldn't have survived. Now, it's Christmas 2023. I'm sitting in front of the tree with my wife, sister, and mother, just as Lena had done, feeling overjoyed. My lovely daughter, born 2 weeks early, is peacefully sleeping in her bed. She's been thriving since her birth. Megan is working hard to regain her pre-pregnancy weight and is likely to succeed soon. While my father-in-law still refuses to acknowledge me, I believe he will change his mind eventually. My relationship with my mother-in-law has improved significantly. She even visits us regularly at our new house. We now live in a 3-bedroom apartment, with enough space for another child if we decide to have one. My old apartment was definitely too small for 3 people. I could go back to being a man now that the original motivation for my transition has passed, but honestly, I like the way my life is going now. Going back would probably be more difficult than continuing with my transition, and I don't miss being a man. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my Patreon for more content and early access to YouTube videos.